One, it's great to be back with everyone. We're here at the Space Bar, hanging out with two great people. Today, our guests are Randy Dial. He is the managing principal at CLA, and we have Barunda Prince. She is the COO at the Russell Center. How are you both doing?
We're doing great.
I'm great. It's excellent to have you. This is just a fun time. This is my favorite part of my job, is just to get to connect with folks like you and chat about the digital workplace. What are some big challenges coming up? But the thing we always got to remember is that we're always humans. So we got to do our capture question to make sure to verify your humanity. So our question today is, if you could relive any year of your life, which one would it be? Either because it was so great or because you wanted to fix it. Randy, I'm going to start with you.
Of course you are. You know what? I think I would relive my junior year of high school. And the reason is I moved high schools. I met my future wife. We're high school sweethearts.
Wow.
And I just remember the fun of that, and also had one of the best years from an athlete standpoint. Just everything really was awesome my junior year of high school.
Excellent. Wow. We were talking beforehand. You said you were cross country. What other sports did you do?
Played basketball and played baseball.
All right. Very cool.
Very
All right.
nice.
Barunda, what about you?
And mine would be the year that I graduated from college. I think I would have either continued on to grad school immediately, but more than likely, I've always wanted to do a study abroad. I couldn't do that because I was in engineering, and you really couldn't do study abroad then if you studied that. So I would have liked to have done that. And so if I could go back and do that, I would do it. I was in a hurry to start my career, not realizing that I had the rest of my life for my career. It was a rare time to have really no obligations and to be free and to have opportunity right there before you. So I would make a different choice there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Mine would be the first year. My wife and I, we spent 6 years in India, and probably some of those early years I would want to go back to, and just, I mean, those whole transformative, like the full experience, but just kind of like you were saying, just at the start, put less pressure on yourself. Hey, you're in a brilliant new place, just enjoy it. Like, see things, don't have so many expectations on yourself of what to do. So yeah, that was really good. Yeah. Cool. Well, our discussion today is about hybrid workplaces, which it seems like everyone's talking about. We're here in February, late February, and we're getting positive news, it seems like, about the virus pandemic going on. People are slowly thinking about being back in the office, so they've been back for a while. So people keep using this term hybrid, which first I want to get from both of you. When you hear somebody say that, or when you say that, we're going to look at a hybrid model. What does that mean to you? Like, how would you define that? Barunda, let me start here.
I had to laugh because the first thing I thought was like more of a car, and from an engineering standpoint than a workplace standpoint. But if I apply it to the workplace, it is what it means to me, which is you have different options for work-life balance, work-life style. So you're not doing one or the other, but you're doing some combination of it. And it can be broader than where you work, but how you work as well.
Good. Randy, what about, do you say that, Randy? Do you say, hey, we're going to go hybrid for a while? Or do you guys you're more office focused, right?
Well, the word hybrid's interesting to me because before all this happened, we were flexible. I use the word flexible. Like if you needed to work from home because kids were sick or you had a doctor appointment, people were already working from home. We've had the technology to do that. I think the pandemic now has made it a more realizable way of doing work, not just when a kid is sick, right? I can actually do this more and have even more flexibility. So the hybrid thing, I think, has just always been there for a lot of companies, but now we're making a bigger deal of it because it's become more real.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would agree, Randy. I think that the terminology, even going from flexible to hybrid, is showing that evolution. But what I do love about this is there was always, I think, in the back of some people's minds, this question about, can you be effective working from home? Are you really working from home as opposed to doing other things? But technology has enabled that question to be answered because you can see people at home and what they're doing. But also the opportunity and the motivation, as you said, through COVID has come where people had to work from home, and that had to be the possibility. And now the light bulb is going off, like saying, wow, we really can do this. We can be productive. We can still find ways of connecting with each other. So I think it's opened up a lot of opportunity and possibilities.
Agreed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When it comes to thinking about like bringing back in this idea of that there's more flexibility, because like you said, I think we proved that we can do work from anywhere. Like you can do work from home, you can do work other places. So the productivity side, for the most part, we got. But the pandemic has also revealed that there's a lot that we did benefit from being in the office. That was kind of like this other part around collaboration. So from either of you, like, what are those things that have become even more important to get together for?
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to start. So I run a professional service practice, right? And the only way you get really good at professional services and elevate your career experience is to develop and be around other leaders. And so one of the cautions that we're starting to kind of think about is we always want to be flexible. We want to allow people to work from home when they need it. But how do these kids out of college elevate their career continually without ever coming to an office and being around leaders and shadowing and experiencing like we all did? And so that's where this hybrid term or, flexibility is going to take on a new meaning, because we have to have some in-person collaboration, or they're just not going to be able to elevate and learn some of the things that we were able to just by being around people.
Yeah, to that point, Randy, I've had to onboard 4 new employees since COVID, and this has actually been in the last 2 months that I've done that. And so the onboarding experience is even different. And you have to be much more intentional and thoughtful about whatever you're doing, about the way that you communicate, because you're not going to have that inorganic opportunity to meet people in the hallway or over lunch or a coffee chat. So you've got to make sure you're intentional about making those opportunities to connect happen, and think through, how do we do this? And so that's one of the things that I've seen is you have to be more intentional about communication, has to be more written communication, things like videotaping and recording things so that people can view it later. So I've noticed that we've had to be much more creative, much more intentional, and much more, I would say, broad thinking and inclusive in the way that we're doing things.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's helped you in other areas too? Like just the fact that you're forced to do that, you're forced to think about the intentionality behind what you're doing and videotaping things and making it accessible. Like, how is that just helpful in general, not just because we're in a pandemic?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I think has been helpful about it is it's shifted the focus from action in terms of activity, maybe I should say, to actually results. It's pushed it so that you don't ask how many hours are you working, because frankly, those lines have blurred between working hours and non-working hours. So that's not a relevant metric or measure or anything. Now it's really been what's been your output, what's been the result, what's been the productivity. So I think that's been really a good shift to have. And the other thing is about me having to be more intentional as a leader. Then I've had to be more intentional in terms of connecting with my team, like scheduling time to actually connect with them and not thinking it's gonna just happen, and do it. And I do more frequent check-ins too. So I do I'll do an 8:30 check-in every day with someone, and it may last only 15 minutes, but it's smaller check-ins more frequently instead of long once a week meetings or once every other week meetings with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, your comment about the number of hours worked is an interesting one, and that is a trend that we're seeing. We're in the heart of busy season right now as an accounting firm, right? And it's interesting because we hear people feel like they're working more now than they were in prior busy seasons because they never turn their computers off. They're at home, it's on, there's nothing else to go do, there's no travel, we can't go on vacations, right, this whole year, so they're always just on, and burnout starts to set in a huge way. And so that's another problem of staying more remote versus coming in. You're not getting that people energy. You're not getting a different perspective, a different view. You're just sitting behind a computer all the time. And that's a problem with this remote.
Yeah, I agree. I see that even with, if I take myself for example, I'll get phone calls at 8 o'clock at night because people know I'm there. Where else would I be? Or even on the weekend, people say, "Hey, let's just get together." I'm thinking, well, today's Friday. That would mean Saturday. So this constant, I don't even know if it's even an expectation, but it's certainly the reality of it that we're just always working because, as you said, there are other things to distract us or other things to do. And you almost feel like I can't say, well, it's Saturday or it's Sunday. I'm not taking a call on those days, or I'm not meeting on those days because everybody else is. So there's this kind of pressure to conform to what everybody else is doing.
Yep.
Yeah, good point. The burnout question is so important. Like you said, it's something that most of us aren't ready to let go, because even our entertainment is digital, right? We're going to get on and we're just going to sit around and watch Netflix or something like that and be around. So everything is right there. And so you never feel like you get a chance to step away from it. And in some ways, like you're saying, Randy, being in the office is a escape from that. Even though you might still be working on a computer, you're getting in a different feeling, and it feels different to be at work than it does to be at home.
Yeah.
You get that separation. I think that's important.
Yeah,
even small things like getting in your car to commute to and from work, or bus or bike or whatever, it breaks it up. Like you're doing something else. You're giving your mind another chance to do something else, or getting up and walking around to go to the next meeting or office. There's like these natural kind of built-in breaks that don't happen when you're at home. You can literally be in front of that screen all day. There have been days that my kitchen would have been, a few feet away from me, and I never make it there. Like I never make it there to have lunch or to get a bottle of water or anything. I'm literally looking at the camera all the time, and the camera's looking at me. And that's another thing too. Yeah. It's constantly being on the camera all the time.
And that's not healthy.
Yep. I've got the opposite problem with the kitchen. It's like, I know it's there all the time, so I'll just go there every 10 minutes and go get a snack.
I wish. Yeah. That's why you're a runner, Neil.
Yeah, that's true. Randy and I were talking about being runners. That's true. I run not because it's healthy, but because that means I can eat more of what I want. So. I got a question about as you have more people coming into the office, there's always this danger of feeling like, hey, the office is HQ. This is the center. This is the nucleus. And if you're not there, it's like, it's okay. You can work from home. But sometimes there are things that people are going to naturally miss out on. People in the office have kind of an unconscious advantage because they're the ones having those side conversations. They're the ones that get to build more of those personal relationships. So is there anything you're doing or that you've seen to try to make it, well, at the same time, like appreciating people who want to be in the office, but not trying to make those who can't come in or who don't want to feel like they're falling behind?
Mm-hmm. I can share some things that I'm doing because roughly half of my team stays home and half of my team will come into the office with some frequency and regularity. And what I've tried to think through is I don't want a culture where there's a in-office culture and then there's a not in-office culture. So I'm always trying to do things where I think through first, how would the experience be if you're at home? And that's how I come from it there first, to try to make the experience be better, because if it's better for you being at home, it's probably going to be even better or pretty good if you're in the office. And I talk about these kinds of things, saying, what helps you at home? What helps you connect to us? What are we doing? I mentioned before that I make a habit of trying to record everything so that people don't feel that they're missing out on something, that they can get that later or not. We do a lot more information sharing in terms of structuring our meetings so that we'll do a deep dive in what one person is working on, just so that we are all informed and sharing and communicating and understanding the role that they play and the role that we can play in supporting them. So we're trying to do things like that I had not necessarily been doing before, because there wasn't that need to do it in the same way. But now it's clear that we have to do that. Otherwise, the motivation, the isolation, which is another thing that is a correlate or accompaniment of the burnout, is the isolation piece. And so working through it and actually even talking about that. And sometimes we do crazy things, like we'll have Zoom yoga, something like that. Zoom happy hour or something to just kind of bring us all together and keep us connected.
Yeah. What about you, Randy?
Well, I was just going to add, you have to be careful how you communicate things. So I recently communicated how great it was to see somebody in the office. I hadn't seen them in like 9 months, and it just touched my heart. And I publicly said that on a big virtual call. And I got called out afterwards because the individual said, look, for those that are uncomfortable still not coming in, that kind of makes them feel like there's a preference, right? And so you have to be very careful how you communicate things. We have a safe back to office plan. It's available to those that want it, but you just have to keep in mind some people still have that uncomfortable feel, or they've got some things at home that they just can't bring this into their home because of challenges, and be careful how you communicate it. But at the end of the day, at some point, there can be development of people's careers if they don't engage in the workforce. There just is. It's a fact, right? And just coaching those people that at some point they're going to have to kind of come to the reality that if they want to advance their career, this is what the profession takes.
Yeah. And Randy, that prompted this thought, this experience that I had where I'm interviewing candidates now, and the HR firm that we're using said, well, do you want to do it in person or not? And I said, well, I want that to be the choice of the candidate, because I don't know their comfort level with engaging with, first of all, me, who is a stranger. They don't know what I do outside of the office. And so I didn't want to put them in that position of feeling like they had to come in order to really have a realistic chance of getting the job. But at the same time, I was thinking to myself, the candidates that came in, they seem to be the ones that are moving through the process more. So being intentional about my own potential bias in that way and working through that is another thing that, I won't say I'm struggling with, but I'm certainly cognizant of.
Yeah. Randy, tell us more about some of these new folks you've hired, especially the young people coming right out of college. Like, have you had a chance to talk with them about what it's been like to start new, fresh, and like you said, how are they going to learn those things that we don't necessarily learn by reading or by watching a YouTube channel, but they just kind of rub off on you?
Yeah, our incoming class has been interesting. Interns and new associates, most of them have been in the office. Like they're ready. They want to start their careers. Most of them have come in. The interns that we interviewed as we went through the pandemic were very adamant. I want to be an in-office intern. If I'm going to be remote, I may not be interested, right? So they want the full experience. So that's a trend we've seen with new hires here in the office. I would say that the class up from them, those that have been around a year or two, they're the ones that tend to want to have that real good flexibility right now, work from home more, come in when they have to. That's the group that I think we've got to start to really kind of zone in on, and just with career coaching and just kind of as the pandemic wears off, coaching them kind of back to what schedule makes sense for them and how are they going to grow their career in the right way.
Yeah. Berunda, the people you're hiring, are they also very young, or they're kind of well along in their careers?
I would say they're kind of all over. We have some interns, and we have some folks that are right coming out of college, and then some more seasoned or experienced folks as well. And that brings up whole issue about talent, because I've seen that talent, the fact that we are remote or can be remote working, has now opened up the possibilities for talent. So there's not the same kind of geographic boundaries. At the same time, I have to think about this particular position, does it lend itself to being remote long term? There's some positions that don't. If I'm looking for an administrative assistant, that's probably not going to lend itself long term to being remote in the same way maybe some other roles. So I'm always trying to figure that out, but at the same time take advantage of the fact that, again, it's certainly increased and deepen the talent pool that I can draw from, because I don't have to be geographically bound in any way.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's talk about just what are the table stakes that have changed in the world. As you're talking about talent, you're talking about how to reach out and find new people to come in. Are there things that, I know Randy, you talked about earlier, that you've kind of always had a flexible work environment? Is there any way that you feel like you've significantly changed in order to be more accommodating to new people coming in and new hires that you're trying to make? Or do you feel like you have an advantage in that in any way?
I think, like I said, we were always flexible and you could work from home. I think our firm, because of how large we are, the technology just enablement and advancement that happened in 2020 was just probably something we'll never see again. Just having to just get everything as technology savvy and enabled as we can, so that if we have to work from home full time again, or people want to work from home longer, they have every capability to do much more than we were able to before. So we changed tons of structures and tons of technology firm wide. I'd say that was probably the biggest 2020 shift that I saw. Outside of that, just again, help clients. I mean, that's the end of the day. The clients are struggling way more than we are. They need help, and we need to get out there and do that for them.
Yeah. Barunda, when you're trying to go out and attract people, do you feel like the basic level of what you say, hey, this is who we are now, the different offerings that you give to new hires, has that changed at all for you?
Oh, it's definitely changed, because we do have that conversation about remote working versus in-house. Timing for it always comes up. I'll give you a case in point. I have a son who's a management consultant, and he was told probably back in June of 2020 that their company would not be coming back in person until August of 2021. Wow. So what he's been doing since that time is, and he was living in San Francisco, where the cost of living is certainly prohibitive, so to speak. So when his lease ran out like in August, he decided that he was going to just remote work from all over the world. So he's literally worked for a month or two from Hawaii. He's been in Colorado for a month or two. He's been in Pennsylvania. He's been in Atlanta. He's now in Arizona. And so I looked at that model and go, wow, and that's really attractive to him, because he can have different experiences. He can manage cost of living if that's an issue or something that's a concern, and he can manage the kind of experiences that he wants as well. And so I keep thinking about, how's it going to be when it's time for him to come back in that office? Yeah. Like I wouldn't want to be the one that he's gonna. That's gonna be an interesting transition. For him. So I think about that all the time in terms of talent, what people want now versus what they will want, and how we all might have to transition back to it. And I just wanted to say a couple of the things that have, with talent, has come along with cybersecurity, because I've noticed that working from home, there is this, remote working, there is this tendency where there's, I call it kind of software creep, where people are using other softwares that are not necessarily approved by the organization. It's getting their needs met and everything, but it puts the organization and company at risk by doing that. So we have to be much more specific and directive in terms of how do we do that, and why do we do that too, so that it's not sounding like we just we're just, trying to, be hard asses about it, but we're actually trying to be protective of data, protective of our employees, and protective of our clients as well. So that's another aspect that has now become a focal point of what we do and how we're doing it.
It's huge.
Yeah. Makes sense. Actually, both those stories together, the story about your son and then Randy about the new people coming in, makes me realize that both having an office centric and having an offering to say, hey, look, we are in the office. You can come in, you can see people. You're going to have a lot of personal interaction. Like that's going to be an advantage to some people. They're going to really want that. And there's also going to be people that say, I don't want that. Like I want to be able to travel around. And so it's almost like you got to lean into your strengths. What is it you're going to offer and attract the people that are coming in that way? That's cool.
Yeah.
Good. We reached the time of the show when we have you guys switch roles and ask each other some questions. So Berunda, why don't you start? Ask Randy a good question.
So Randy, before we started, we were talking about cardio and working out. And I'm just curious, like, is that how you, in the midst of this remote working and pandemic and so on, like, have you found that is integral for you as a leader and for your organization, that you make sure you focus on that part of things as well?
You bet. Personal wellness. So not only running and getting some physical exercise, but I also every morning wake up early, and while I'm drinking my coffee, I sit in complete silence and I do a daily devotional. I do a little mindfulness exercise. I started that about a year ago. I mean, the stress was building and I just felt like it gets your day off to a great start. Just take a little time, 10 minutes, and just sit in quiet and get ready for the day. So I also do that as well. It helps.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
My question for you would be, how do you feel 2021 is going to go? Are you bullish? Are you nervous? How do you think things are going to go?
Oh my gosh, I'm actually really optimistic now that the vaccine is here, and we're ramping up to have more supply and finding ways to do this and to coordinate it. And so I'm optimistic. I'm also optimistic that we'll take the best of what happened in 2020 and the learnings from that and apply it to 2021 going forward, so that we'll be in an even better position than we were pre-pandemic when it comes to work, when it comes to life balance. Because like you, I've been encouraged to do some things differently now, to be mindful of not only my professional self, but my personal self. And I think that's a good thing in the long run. So I guess you would say I'm more bullish than anything else on this.
Me too.
Good. We love it. I think it's going to be a great year too. I think this is, we're in the place we need to be. We understand what's going on. I think for the most part, things are positive. And I know it's spring showing up right now. So at least Randy and I here in Indianapolis, like we're actually getting some sunshine, which is unusual for us. So everything's just happy here.
Good. I'm glad. Let's just all stay happy and healthy and make it through. And keep innovating, creating new ways.
Absolutely. Well, Randy, Berunda, thanks so much for being on this show. It's always helpful to come in, get a little pick me up, some excitement, and get to talk with the people coming in. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
It was nice to meet you.